Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Lil G Fan Show. I know it has been some time since my last video. Unfortunately, the world has gone through a lot of changes due to the global pandemic we are currently going through. We all know now that wearing a mask is the new normal, and I'm wearing this mask to show my support of all those actively doing so in an effort to help stave off the number of cases. Due to the global pandemic, I hadn't put much thought into releasing any new content, instead thinking about all the hard times everybody's been going through. Nevertheless, two good friends have reached out and asked, when are we getting a new video? So I want to send special thanks out to Monica and Hector. Also want to dedicate this video to a good friend I lost earlier this year. To fellow video and filmmaker Edgar, I want to say thank you for being the first to praise and support these videos last year. When thinking about theme for this particular episode, I got to thinking about how the pandemic has everybody staying indoors on lockdown with family and friends. And what better way to spend that quality time than to dust off a few old board games? And what better themed board game to play with your Lil G fan than a Godzilla one? So I have a few modern ones right here I'm going to discuss, but first I want to talk about the unique history behind the first two Godzilla board games. In the early 1960s, following the success of the Godzilla vs. King Kong movie, a company named Ideal released the very first Godzilla item you could buy in America, a Godzilla board game. Now, the box art for this particular board game is quite amazing, as it drew a lot of its images from the Godzilla vs. King Kong movie. And this particular game was developed with the classic move your piece through obstacles to the opposite side of the board, much like Sorry, Chutes and Ladders, Trivia Pursuit, and Candyland. And once you made it to the other side of the board, you would successfully fire a rocket at Godzilla in the middle of the board, making yourself the winner. This being the very first Godzilla item, it is considered a holy grail among collectors, but I definitely recommend taking a look out for it. You'll be quite lucky to come across it. Next, I wanted to go back into the late 70s, following the success of Godzilla's Saturday morning cartoon and Marvel comic series. The toy giant Mattel, those behind Hot Wheels and Barbie, released their Godzilla board game in 1978. Now, you and the other players commanded a squadron of spaceships that you placed on a rotating space platform. And then once you find out how many spaces you rotate this platform based on the number you get after spinning a spinner, you would rotate your platform, and anytime Godzilla might appear to eat yours or another player's spaceship. And you would do this until only one player's spaceship remains, making you the winner. Now, I must admit, this game looks quite fun, and I'm actively pursuing it for my Lil G fan because I believe we'll have a lot of fun playing it. Now, first of the modern games I wanted to discuss is Godzilla Kaiju Wars, released in 2011. This game is 2 to 4 players and says ages 14 and up. Released by Toy Vault. You might remember that company. They released the Godzilla plushies I talked about in my last video. Now, this game was developed by Richard Berg, who was noted for making very complex, intricate war games that unfortunately did not translate well over to this game. We're going to take a closer look at what's inside the box right now. Okay, so here everybody, here we have everything within the Godzilla Kaiju Wars game. I wanted to first show you, take a look at this amazing board and the amount of detail they added to it with this city. And here I have placed a few of the building tile pieces. They look really awesome. What's interesting about these tiles is once they get destroyed, they become rubble. And we can see that. We can see the little monster footprints on them, which is kind of cool. Now, along the outside of the board, you can see areas for the various cards that are used to play the game. And over here, we have the helpful info cards. Pawns and gardens. Tanks cannot enter. Cost 2 energy for Kaiju to enter. Good to know. And now, on the other side, we have the various events, which add a little bit in-depth gameplay. Now, each player is going to get one of these awesome looking cards for their monster character. We have Rodan, King Ghidorah. Looks pretty awesome. The Final Wars Gigan. And of course, Godzilla. As you can see, these cards have two different tracks which run either side of them. Energy to do the various actions, and the health meter to indicate damage. For a little bit more added gameplay, you flip the card over and there's the advanced rules with various other power-ups and abilities. Now, another awesome detail about this game is the figures which are placed on the board. Really awesome detail. Here we have Godzilla. The Final Wars Gigan. Really did a great job on the paint jobs for these things. Rodan, I like Rodan because the detail they put on his wings. And King Ghidorah. Now here are a few of the various cards that are used to play. There are stun cards, knockdown cards, and action cards. And here I have an example of how the combat works. So when you take two cards, we have Godzilla and Gigan. And when we line them up, these squares you must decipher to see how the action plays, whether the attack or defense wins out. And here's a bag of the more tile pieces. And here, I wanted to show a little bit. Here are the tanks which you can put out over the board. They're just little tile pieces. And also armored personnel carrier pieces. Now this particular game is based on different various scenarios which run the gameplay. Now I personally haven't tried many of them because of the vagueness in the instruction manual, which is actually a little bit smaller than the game card. Only the first 8 pages go over the rules of this rather complex looking game, while the last bit covers each of the various scenarios. Here's one of the scenarios right here. The first kaiju to score 35 destruction points, or the last kaiju standing wins, whichever comes first. The reason this game has not been a hit because there appears to be a lot of different scenarios that appear, or situations I should say, that happen in the gameplay, which causes all the players to question how the next event's going to follow. And I have heard that the game designer, Mr. Berg, is gracious enough to explain a little bit more of the details online. And I've also heard that extra rules are available online, although I haven't found them myself. But I wanted to point out this game does look amazing in its construction. Take a look at that board again. The game pieces and the action cards. But unfortunately, the learning curve is quite steep if you're not an advanced board game player, I guess you might say. But still, the game looks great, and I definitely recommend picking them up to add it to your collection. So as you can see, this game had a lot going for it with its very intricate board, game pieces, and cards within the box. But unfortunately, due to the vague instructions that came with this game, it didn't translate well over to good gameplay. The only time friends and I have attempted to play this game, after an hour or two trying to decipher the instruction manual, we decided instead to watch Tokyo SOS. But still, this makes for a very interesting Godzilla piece to have in your collection. Next, we have a more recent game that was released this summer, actually. we have Godzilla Tokyo Clash. This game, released by Funko Games, is also 2 to 4 players, and recommended ages is 10 and up. We're going to take a closer look at what's inside the box right now. Okay, everybody, here we have everything within the Tokyo Clash board game. First, I want to show off this amazing board, which is segmented by different tiles, which allow you to construct different setups based on how many players are going to be playing. This is a 2-player setup here. And here I just put down the various building types. We have towers, radar dishes, military bunkers, and power stations. Destroying these during gameplay with your monster gives them different benefits. Now next I want to go over to these amazing pieces which come with the game. Not as well painted as the World Wars one, but still pretty awesome. Here's King Ghidorah, Megalon, Godzilla, and personal favorite, Mothra. And here we have a few pieces which also go on the board. Much like World Wars, they're simple tiles. I believe here we have trains, planes, UFOs, and of course the Oxygen Destroyer, which plays a big part of this game. Here we have the amazing instruction manual, which is very well illustrated. As you can see here, there's a good breakdown of all the rules. This game is played in different phases. As you can see them here: action, refresh, event, and Oxygen Destroyer phase. At the beginning of each round, the players are going to get 5 of their monster cards. Here we see a King Ghidorah one. And they will use these cards to move around the board, using the energy for each card to hopefully destroy various buildings and vehicles to gain more energy to hopefully successfully attack another monster who might be able to counter depending upon the defense cards that might be in their hand. And if that attack is successful, you get to take one of their cards as a trophy. And all the while you're destroying buildings, those are being added to the Oxygen Destroyer phase, where basically if the number of buildings gets to a certain, buildings destroyed gets to a certain point, the Oxygen Destroyer goes off and all monsters must leave the board, and then you tally up who has the most trophies from your monster battles, making you the winner. A pretty easy game to follow, although I have heard a few gripes online about certain situations, not as many as World Wars that you're unable to resolve, but still a fun game to play. And I hope you and your Lil G fan would have a great time learning this game. I'm looking forward to playing with my Lil G fan. Whatever monster he chooses, I'm hopefully going to be able to call King Ghidorah as mine. Well, there you have. There's everything in the Kaiju, Tokyo Clash Godzilla board game. I definitely recommend picking this game up. So, despite the interesting learning curve of this game, which might be from anywhere from an hour to a few hours, I think this game looks like a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to playing with my Lil G fan when he gets a little bit older. So I'll definitely take a look at your local Target for picking up this Godzilla board game. Next, we have a reboot of a classic game with a Godzilla theme. And Godzilla Monopoly was also released this summer. As you can see, Godzilla 1984 on the cover. So with the makeover of this Godzilla game, we all know the number one thing they do is release themed pieces. So they take out the classic thimble and boot, and the pieces are now the monsters. Here we have Rodan, we have Mechagodzilla, we have Godzilla himself, These nice little metal pieces with a lot of detail on them for being so small. Here's King Ghidorah. Very nice little design there. And here, interesting character, we have Son of Godzilla. We haven't really seen him in any of the Godzilla board games. And last but not least, Mothra. Now, I personally haven't sat through an entire game of Monopoly, but due to the theme of this particular one, I would definitely sit down and see my Lil G fan and I can have a lot of good times playing this version of Monopoly. And now, another game with a Godzilla reboot is Godzilla Jenga. The stacking tower has now become a building. And they, I believe, added some new rules to enhance the gameplay for this particular Jenga board game. They've added this track, which I've never seen in Jenga before, and this Godzilla tower, which stands right up next to this tower really well. So at the beginning of each turn, the player spins this die, which has Godzilla either going up the track, and it tells them how many tiles to pull, either from 1, 2, and even 3. And with a single roll of the die, you might even pull double the number of tiles. So you could be pulling up to 4 tiles in one turn, making it pretty difficult, I believe, but a lot of fun. I definitely recommend this game for the Lil G fans. And last but not least, I wanted to talk about this Godzilla card game, Godzilla Stomp. It was also released by Toy Vault around the same time as Kaiju Wars release. Now, I recommend this board game because I've had a lot of fun playing it. You and 4 other players, or 3 other players I should say, take charge of a monster. One thing I like about this game is the artwork. Here's Mechagodzilla, Destroyer, Batra, and Godzilla, of course. As you can see, these cards have some numbers on them, and the final one being Rampage. The objective of this game is to collect as many building cards. Here you have a few of them here. Depending on the number of players, that many buildings is laid out on the table. And you would take turns seeing who gets to draw the highest card first. And if you want all the remaining cards that weren't chosen, you use this Rampage card each monster has. And after a set of rounds, you see how many building points you have to declare the winner. Pretty fun game. So there we have a few of the Godzilla board games out there right now. I definitely want to recommend picking up the Godzilla Jenga for your younger G fans, because I believe you'll have a lot of fun with the Godzilla rules. For your preteens, I definitely want to recommend the Godzilla Monopoly and Tokyo Clash, and the card game Godzilla Stomp. While Godzilla Kaiju War Wars is just a nice piece to add to your collection. Now all these, with the exception of the Tokyo Clash, which can be found at any Target right now, are available online. And keep a special eye out for the 2 older games, just in case you get lucky to come across them, because they'll be great additions to your Godzilla board game collection. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for future videos. Thank you for watching.